What if one woman's quiet regrets could spare you years of pain? This video shares the 5 most costly mistakes made by an 81-year-old widow, mistakes that turned her golden years into years of unnecessary struggle. Whether you're widowed, married, or living alone, what she learned the hard way can help you avoid similar heartache. She wasn't reckless or careless. She simply didn't see it coming. These weren't dramatic, newsworthy decisions. They were quiet missteps that happened slowly over time. But when stacked together, they built a life she later admitted felt far lonelier, harder, and more confusing than it had to be. This is not a warning video to scare you. It's a gentle mirror for those of us who want to age wisely and with dignity. Her story isn't shared to judge, but to shine a light on what's often left unsaid in conversations about growing older. By the end of this video, you'll not only recognize what to avoid, but also how to build a future that feels more supported, stable, and peaceful. And if you've already made 1 or 2 of these mistakes, don't worry. It's never too late to pivot. Stick with me, and I'll walk you through each one in her own words and mine. Let's begin. Mistake 1, trusting her children with everything. She assumed that because they were family, her children would always have her best interests at heart. That sounds comforting, doesn't it? And often it is true. But for Martha, it became the first quiet mistake that slowly unraveled her independence. After her husband passed, she transferred the deed to her home to her oldest son's name to make things simpler. She added another child to her bank account so someone could help pay bills. And over time, she stopped double-checking things herself. What began as convenience turned into silence. The bills were paid, yes, but choices about her house, her schedule, even her health care started happening without her input. She never saw any red flags. Her children weren't cruel. They were just busy, distracted, and occasionally dismissive. She would hear, "We've already taken care of it, Mom," instead of, "What do you want to do?" And because she trusted them blindly, she didn't ask enough questions. The day she realized she couldn't make a financial decision without a signature from someone else was the day she cried alone in the kitchen. It wasn't about money, it was about dignity. Seniors who hand over control too soon often do so from a place of love. But love doesn't mean handing away your autonomy. When Martha finally asked for everything to be returned to her name, her children were confused. They weren't trying to hurt her. They just hadn't realized how deeply she needed to feel in control of her own life again. If there's one thing she could do differently, she said it would be this: keep help close, but keep decisions even closer. Because even well-meaning people can forget that you're still the author of your life. Delegating is wise. Surrendering without boundaries is not. And for Martha, the cost of that first mistake was the slow erosion of her voice, until it took real effort to get it back. Mistake 2, saying yes to loneliness. After her husband passed, Martha was surrounded by well-wishers, cards, casseroles, and calls. But as the weeks turned into months, the quiet settled in and stayed. At first, she didn't mind. She liked the stillness, the space to remember, to breathe. But she didn't notice how the silence began to shape her. When a neighbor invited her to a book club, she smiled and declined. When her church friend called to offer a ride to Sunday service, she said maybe next time. And when her old friend from her sewing group asked if she'd like to join again, she simply said she was too tired. These weren't firm rejections, they were soft exits. Gentle goodbyes. Over time, the invitation stopped coming. Martha had unintentionally taught the world that she was fine alone, but she wasn't. The silence she once welcomed became an echo she couldn't escape. Loneliness crept in quietly, not as sadness, but as a slow fading of color from her days. Meals were eaten without conversation. Decisions were made without discussion. Laughter was something she remembered more than experience. It wasn't that no one cared. It's that she'd made it hard for anyone to reach her. She thought she was being polite, not burdensome, strong. But saying no to connection, even gently, is still saying no. And when done often enough, it becomes a habit that's hard to reverse. Martha eventually realized that loneliness doesn't just make you feel alone. It convinces you that maybe you deserve to be. Rebuilding those connections took effort, humility, and time. She had to start small, waving at neighbors, answering the phone, attending one church service, and little by little, life returned. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 2 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now let's move forward. Mistake 3, ignoring financial realities. Martha had always trusted her husband with the finances. He was the one who paid the bills, renewed the insurance, managed their investments, and made sure taxes were filed on time. After his passing, she assumed things would somehow continue on their own. For months, she didn't open the bank statements, and when she did, she barely understood what she was looking at. Bills were paid late, small penalties began to pile up, and she overlooked the fact that one of their insurance policies had quietly lapsed. When a kind neighbor asked if she needed help with anything, she said no. She felt embarrassed. She was 81 and had lived a full life. How could she admit she didn't understand her own finances? So she remained quiet, letting pride disguise itself as dignity. But the truth was, avoidance only made things worse. One day she discovered that a small inheritance her husband had left her was left in an account that had since been charged. Maintenance fees, eating away at it month by month. Another time she fell for a phone scam. Just one call, just one mistake. But it cost her more than she could afford. She didn't tell her children. She didn't want to seem helpless. But that silence cost her peace of mind. Eventually, Martha gathered the courage to ask her daughter to help her review her finances. It wasn't easy asking for help. Never is when you've spent a lifetime being the one others leaned on. But that moment of vulnerability saved her. They worked together to set up auto pay for her bills, met with a financial advisor, and even canceled a few unnecessary subscriptions she didn't realize were still charging her monthly. Martha learned that it's not weakness to ask for help, it's wisdom. Money doesn't manage itself, and in old age, clarity becomes even more essential. Waiting too long to face financial truths can lead to preventable stress, lost savings, and sleepless nights. And those are burdens no widow should carry alone. Mistake 4. Letting bitterness grow instead of healing. Martha didn't think of herself as angry. But over time, little things started to wear on her spirit. The neighbor who stopped checking in. The friend who didn't attend the funeral. The distant family member who never called. She told herself she was just disappointed, but in truth, she was hurt. And instead of processing that pain, she let it harden. She replayed conversations from years ago, held on to grievances like old souvenirs, and sometimes snapped at people without meaning to. One afternoon, her grandson visited with a story from school, excited to share. But when he accidentally knocked over a vase, Martha raised her voice sharply. The boy flinched, then went quiet. That night, she couldn't sleep. She realized her reaction had less to do with the vase, and more to do with a heaviness she hadn't dealt with. Bitterness, when left unchecked, changes how we see the world. It makes everything seem colder. Every silence feel like rejection. Every mistake feel personal. Martha began journaling not to dwell, but to release. She also joined a grief support group, where she heard other stories of loss and healing. Slowly, her heart softened. She reached out to the friend she'd been avoiding and simply said, "I miss you." They had lunch the next week. Martha learned that healing isn't about pretending the hurt never happened. It's about not letting it define who you become. Letting go of resentment gave her room to laugh again, to connect again, and to love again, even in the quiet chapter of her life. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 4 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now let's move forward. Mistake 5, isolating herself from new possibilities. After her husband passed, Martha slowly began turning down invitations. At first it was out of grief. Then it became a habit. Church gatherings felt overwhelming. Calls from her cousin went unanswered. When the local library offered a memoir writing class, she glanced at the flyer and threw it away. "I'm too old to start something new," she told herself. But each time she chose comfort over curiosity, her world got a little smaller. She stayed in her robe longer. Meals became simpler and less frequent. Days blurred together. What she didn't realize was that isolation wasn't just about being alone. It was about losing the belief that new joy was possible. One day, while reorganizing her husband's belongings, she found a postcard from years ago. It was from a trip they never took. On the back, he'd written, "Still so much to explore. Let's never stop." Something in those words stirred her. She signed up for the next community event, a cooking demo at the senior center. Nervously, she went. There she met a woman named June, recently widowed too. They bonded over shared losses and swapped recipes. That small step reminded Martha that life after loss doesn't mean shrinking away. It can mean growing in new directions. By choosing to engage even when it felt hard, she gave herself permission to discover unexpected happiness. The biggest mistake she nearly made was believing her story had already ended. But stories don't end in grief. They shift, they evolve, and with courage they open to something more. Final thoughts. We often think that wisdom only comes from what we've done right. But in truth, the deepest kind comes from recognizing where we've gone wrong and choosing to grow from it. Martha's story isn't rare. Many seniors, especially those facing life alone after decades of partnership, walk a road paved with silence, fear, and regret. But just because something starts in sorrow doesn't mean it has to stay there. Every mistake Martha made was born from pain, but everyone was also an invitation. An invitation to re-engage, to reconnect, and to reclaim a sense of self-worth. You may see parts of her in yourself, or in someone you love. If so, take it as a gentle nudge. It's not too late. Not to organize your finances, not to take care of your health, not to create a joyful routine, not to speak with intention, and certainly not to open your heart to new friendships and new beginnings. The path forward may feel uncertain, but it's still yours to walk step by step with quiet strength. Thank you for joining us today. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share one thing you learned today and how you plan to use it in your life. Your thoughts are important to us, so don't hesitate to share them. Reading your comments gives us great motivation and encouragement. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.